Teacher shaves black girl's head in the classroom, not realizing her mother was actually the school principal. In a small town in the United States, an elementary school becomes the setting for an incident that will forever change the lives of a mother and her daughter. Lena Thompson, a respected and influential principal, finds herself in a painful struggle against racism when her daughter, Amaya, becomes the target of a cruel act by a teacher who does not understand the beauty of diversity. In a middle-class neighborhood, complex social and racial dynamics permeate everyday life. In this environment, Lena, a black woman in her early 30s, dedicates her career to creating a safe and inclusive space for all students. She is a loving mother who teaches Amaya to take pride in her identity and her afro hair, which she would braid every Sunday. Amaya, an 8-year-old girl full of life and curiosity, loves going to school, where she is cherished by her classmates. However, one day, after an innocent playtime, her school life takes an unexpected turn. The math teacher, Karen Harlow, a white woman in her 50s, embodies the lack of understanding that pervades the school. Raised in a homogeneous environment, Karen carries biases that prevent her from seeing the beauty in diversity. In a moment of impatience, she makes a drastic decision. She takes Amaya to an empty room and cuts part of her hair, claiming that the girl needed to be more presentable. For Amaya, this action is a devastating blow, and she feels ashamed and confused, not understanding the reason behind what happened. The incident quickly spreads throughout the school, and tensions rise. Students and parents rally in support of Amaya, while her mother, Lena, is overcome with shock and indignation. What was once a complacent community now begins to question the veiled intolerance that permeates their interactions. Lena, determined to seek justice for her daughter, is confronted with the reality of the racism she has always fought against in her career. As the investigation into Karen Harlow unfolds, Lena becomes an active voice in her community, leading a program to raise awareness about respect for diversity. The path is difficult and filled with challenges, but Lena refuses to give up. She must confront not only the pain her daughter experienced, but also the uncomfortable truths about the society they live in. Lena's struggle becomes a reflection of the struggle of many, and she learns that true change begins with the courage to confront ignorance and educate. The story unfolds in an environment where every corridor of the school carries echoes of outrage and solidarity, and where the classroom becomes a symbol of inequality. The courtroom, where the final developments take place, represents the quest for justice and the hope for a more inclusive future. Lena and Amaya, united in their journey, will discover that the strength of a united community can challenge even the deepest roots of prejudice. As the story progresses, the emotional connection between Lena and Amaya grows stronger, and they learn that even in the face of the weight of ignorance, love and dignity are powerful forces that can transform lives and communities. The news of the incident at the school spread quickly throughout the small town, and what began as a simple game turned into a real uproar. Lena, upon receiving the call from the school, felt her heart race. What could have happened? Upon arriving at the school, her fears became reality. She saw Amaya sitting in a corner of the principal's office, her eyes watery, holding a lock of hair that had been cut. The impact of the situation hit her like a punch in the stomach. Amaya had always been a cheerful child, full of dreams and hopes. But in that moment, her innocence was replaced by confusion and shame. Lena felt her own indignation grow. How was it possible that a teacher, someone who should be a model of respect and understanding, had done something so cruel? That room, which had once been a safe space, was now becoming a battleground between ignorance and dignity. As the days went by, the town began to divide. Parents united in support of Lena and Amaya, while others defended the teacher, claiming she had no bad intentions. Lena heard comments that deeply hurt her. She just wanted to help the girl fit in better, or, "You're overreacting, it's just hair." Those comments, though superficial, revealed the depth of prejudice that still existed in the community. Among the parents supporting Lena was Marcus, a longtime friend. He was a black man, father of 2 children, who also attended the same school. Marcus had always played a supportive role in Lena's life, but now he became an active ally in her struggle. However, their friendship faced a challenge. Marcus, although supportive, also felt the weight of the consequences. He feared that his own position in the community would be compromised by getting involved in the controversy. This dilemma began to create a rift between him and Lena, who needed unconditional support. Meanwhile, teacher Karen Harlow found herself surrounded by criticism. Although she was not a bad person, her lack of understanding of racial and cultural issues isolated her. She could not perceive the impact of her actions. Instead of apologizing and learning from the situation, Karen closed herself off in her defense, claiming she was just trying to help. This resistance to acknowledge her mistakes only heightened the tension. Lena, for her part, was consumed by a mix of emotions. Her initial indignation soon transformed into a fierce determination to fight for justice, but with every step, she felt increasingly challenged. She had to face not only the pain her daughter was feeling, but also the hostile reactions from some parents and community members who saw her struggle as an exaggeration. Nights turned into insomnia, and Lena often found herself questioning her own strength. She wondered if she could face the battle ahead. Doubt haunted her. What if I fail? What if change never happens? Amid this emotional storm, Lena began organizing meetings at the school, seeking to create a space for dialogue. The first gathering was small, but the tension was palpable. Many parents were reluctant to participate, fearing the repercussions. Lena felt discouraged, but did not give up. One by one, parents began to join her, touched by Amaya's story and Lena's courage. With each new voice that rose, she felt her fight gaining strength. However, the battle was far from easy. During one of the meetings, a father expressed his view that Karen's discipline should be defended. He argued that traditional education should not be challenged. This reaction sparked a heated debate, and Lena felt her frustration grow. It was as if she were fighting against a wall of resistance, and this made her even more determined to continue. With each obstacle, a new lesson emerged. Lena began to realize that ignorance could not be combated solely with anger, but rather with education and empathy. Meanwhile, Amaya, despite the trauma, began to find support among her peers. Some children, who had previously been mere acquaintances, started to become true friends. They united to create supportive posters highlighting the beauty of diversity. Amaya's innocence, even amidst the pain, began to bloom again, and this gave Lena a renewed sense of hope. As difficult as it was, mother and daughter were rising again. They discovered that despite the ignorance surrounding them, love and solidarity could shine even in the darkest hours. And while the road ahead remained uncertain, Lena knew that the fight for justice and understanding had only just begun. Their journey would not be in vain. This battle would become a legacy for Amaya and the entire community. Lena continued her fight with determination, but the challenges seemed to increase each day. As she organized the meetings, she noticed that some parents were distancing themselves. There was a growing resistance to the idea that the school needed to discuss issues of diversity and inclusion. In one of the meetings, a father, known for his conservative stance, raised his voice, questioning why they should change their way of teaching because of one incident. This is a school, not a place for social experiments. These words echoed in the room, and the tension escalated. Lena felt her heart race, but she remained calm. She knew she needed to respond firmly, but also with understanding. As the weeks passed, Lena began to feel increasingly isolated. The support she received from Marcus was invaluable, but he was also dealing with his own concerns. He tried to balance defending Lena with the need to maintain good relations with other parents. Sometimes, when they met, Lena noticed that Marcus seemed distant, as if he were battling an internal storm. This troubled her. "He can't leave me to fight this battle alone," she thought. This concern made her feel even more pressured, as if she were carrying the weight of the struggle not only for Amaya, but for Marcus and the entire community. With each meeting, Lena felt more exhausted. It was a cycle that seemed endless: criticism, defenses, heated debates, and often a return to square one. She began to doubt herself. What if all this is in vain? What if I can't change anything? The frustration was palpable. She had to face not only the resistance of others, but also her own insecurities. On some nights, when loneliness consumed her, tears streamed down her face as she wondered if she was doing the right thing. The stress began to affect her health. She frequently felt tired and drained of energy. Meanwhile, Amaya was dealing with her own battles. Although she was surrounded by new friends who supported her, the pain of the incident was still fresh. One morning, as she prepared to go to school, Amaya hesitated. "Mum, what if they laugh at me again?" Lena looked into her daughter's eyes and for a moment felt powerless. Amaya's fear was a reflection of what Lena herself felt. But instead of letting herself be discouraged, Lena knelt down and affirmed, "You are beautiful, Amaya, just the way you are. No one can take that away from you." These words were like a balm for both of them. But Lena knew that the challenges were far from over. Before we continue with this emotional story, take a moment to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any stories. And let us know in the comments which city you are watching this video from. The atmosphere at school remained tense. Karen, the teacher involved, was feeling increasingly pressured. Although she had not intended to hurt Amaya, her lack of understanding and the way she handled the situation made her a target. She began to avoid meetings with parents, which only fueled the animosity. Lena did not want Karen to be a villain, but also could not ignore what had happened. It was a fine line, and Lena felt that every step she took could lead to a new conflict. One night, while reviewing documents for the upcoming meeting, Lena received a message from Marcus. He expressed his frustration with the situation, saying that some parents were banding together to call for Karen's resignation. This made Lena's heart race. How will this help Amaya, she thought. She didn't want the situation to turn into a witch hunt. Lena decided it was time to act, not just in defense of Amaya, but also in search of a solution that could unite the community. At the next meeting, Lena presented a proposal. Instead of calling for Karen's resignation, how about hosting a workshop on diversity and inclusion? The idea was to challenge the community to reflect on their own perceptions and prejudices. The proposal was met with skepticism, but some voices began to rise in support. Marcus, who was in the audience, spoke up. "We need an opportunity to learn and grow together. What happened to Amaya was horrible, but we can do something positive from it." His words resonated and sparked a heated but productive discussion. Although there was resistance, Lena noticed that some people were starting to see the situation in a new light. This small victory filled her with hope, but the battle was far from over. Lena's vulnerability continued to manifest. She still felt the pressure, the doubt, and the need to be strong. However, she began to realize that her fragilities were not a sign of weakness, but rather a natural part of the struggle for justice. The journey was far from linear. Every step forward brought new challenges and twists. However, with the support of friends like Marcus and the growing solidarity among the parents, Lena began to believe that even amid pain and conflict, there was a path toward understanding and healing. And above all, she knew that the fight for Amaya was more than personal. It was a fight for a future where all children could feel safe, respected, and loved. On a Friday morning, as the sunlight streamed through the school windows, Lena woke up with a tightness in her heart. The day promised to be yet another battle. She got up, got dressed, and looked at Amaya, who was sitting at the table eating her breakfast. Her daughter's expression was one of determination, but also of apprehension. This made Lena reflect on her own struggle. However, the feeling of exhaustion was starting to weigh on her. Upon arriving at school, Lena felt the charged atmosphere. Parents, students, and teachers were circulating in the courtyard, but there was a palpable tension in the air. When she entered the meeting room, she noticed the group was divided. While some parents supported the idea of the workshop, others continued to demand Karen's dismissal. The discussion soon intensified, and voices overlapped, creating a chaotic sound that echoed off the walls. Lena tried to remain calm, but frustration grew within her. It was at that tumultuous moment that an unexpected event occurred. One of the parents, Carlos, who had been among the most vocal in calling for Karen's resignation, had an anxiety attack. He began to fidget, his hands trembled, and his face turned pale. The room fell silent, and everyone turned to him, concerned. Lena, despite her own stress, felt an urge to help. She approached Carlos and crouched down beside him, speaking softly. "Are you okay? Breathe deeply with me." As Lena tried to calm him down, she realized that the situation was more complex than it appeared. Carlos, a man who had always been so firm in his opinions, was struggling with his own insecurities and fears. This hit her like a revelation. Everyone there was carrying their own struggles, their own stories of pain and resilience. The tension in the room was not just about Amaya or Karen, but about the rooted fears and prejudices that each of them brought. After a few minutes, Carlos calmed down, and the meeting continued, but the atmosphere had changed. People began to look at each other differently. Lena realized that empathy could be the key to change. She stood up and, with a firm voice, shared what she had witnessed. "We are all here because we care about our children, but perhaps instead of attacking each other, we should try to understand what each of us is going through." Her words resonated in the room. She saw heads nodding and some expressions shifting from hostility to reflection. Lena was moved to see that by offering a bit of vulnerability, she was helping to create a safe space for others to open up as well. She thought of Amaya and how her daughter dealt with her insecurities. It was time to set aside divisions and seek unity. However, in the back of her mind, Lena questioned, what if this isn't enough? What if I fail? Doubt haunted her, but she decided not to let it paralyze her. With renewed courage, Lena proposed a different idea, a gathering where everyone could share their personal experiences. She asked each parent to talk about a difficulty they had faced and how it had shaped them. This would be an opportunity for connection, a chance to look at the complexities of each person's life. The group hesitated, but after a moment, some parents began to speak up. One of them, Anna, shared the pain of having a child who had been bullied. Another, Roberto, recounted his own experience of exclusion during childhood. The stories began to flow, and the tension that had dominated the room started to dissipate. Lena saw tears in the eyes of many, including her own. As the accounts continued, Lena realized that the struggle she faced was not just about Amaya, but about all those who felt marginalized and invisible. A sense of community began to emerge, and for the first time, she felt that there was a real possibility for change. However, at the end of the meeting, a new concern arose. How could she unite all these feelings and experiences into practical action? The workshop still needed to be planned, and raw emotions could lead to new challenges. Doubt returned to haunt her, but now there was a seed of hope planted in her heart. She knew that, even if things weren't perfect, the journey she was on was meaningful. As she returned home, Lena reflected on the revelation she had experienced that day. The fight for Amaya had become something bigger. It was now about empathy and understanding, about making space for everyone to feel heard and respected. She realized that, although the challenges were great, the strength she found in the shared stories could be the key to the future she so desired for her daughter and for the entire community. With this new perspective, Lena decided that she would continue to fight, not just for Amaya, but for a world where every voice was valued. In the week following the meeting, Lena felt that something had changed within her. The tension that had once accompanied her had transformed into renewed determination. She was determined to create a more welcoming environment for Amaya and for other children who, like her, were struggling to find their place. However, the reality was not so simple. The day after the meeting, Lena received a phone call from a school friend informing her that some mothers were still unhappy with Karen's approach. There were rumors that a new meeting would be called to discuss the possibility of a new dismissal. The tightness in Lena's heart returned, but instead of letting it bring her down, she decided that she could not remain silent. The idea of a workshop was still on her mind, but now she knew she needed support to make it a reality. Lena began to reach out to the parents who had shared their stories at the meeting, and to her surprise, many of them were willing to collaborate. Anna, who had spoken about bullying, offered to help with the organization. Roberto also joined them, bringing his experience in conflict mediation. The team began to take shape, but new challenges arose. The first task was to decide on the format of the workshop. Lena wanted it to be a safe space where everyone could share and learn, but the anxiety of organizing something so important made her nervous. She remembered the stories she had heard and the impact they had, but doubt still lingered in her mind. What if it didn't work? That night, while Amaya was doing her homework, Lena sat at the table lost in thought. She looked at her daughter and noticed that Amaya was quiet. "Is everything okay, sweetheart?" she asked. The girl looked up, her eyes reflecting a mix of concern and hope. "Mom, do you think the workshop will help? What if things don't change?" These words cut through Lena. She realized that while she was fighting for a more inclusive future, Amaya was also going through her own anxieties. Lena moved closer to her daughter, took her hand and said, "I want you to know that we are doing this together, and even if we can't change everything at once, every step counts." Amaya smiled faintly, but the worry was still there. With the date of the workshop approaching, Lena and her team gathered to discuss the details. During these meetings, energy began to flow. Parents shared ideas about activities, topics to be addressed, and how they could ensure that everyone felt comfortable. Creating a safe space seemed possible, but the pressure was also mounting. Lena felt she needed to be the voice of reason, but the responsibility weighed heavily on her shoulders. The night before the workshop, Lena had a sleepless night. She reviewed her notes repeatedly, restless about every detail. The fear that something would go wrong consumed her. She found herself thinking about Carlos, the father who had the anxiety crisis, and how his vulnerability had been a catalyst for change. With that in mind, she decided that instead of trying to be perfect, she would be authentic. This might perhaps inspire others to open up. On the day of the workshop, Lena was nervous but determined. Upon arriving at the school, she saw a group of parents and children gathered at the entrance, some already talking. Her heart raced, but at the same time, a warmth of hope began to grow. As people started to enter the room, she welcomed them with a smile, trying to convey that this was a safe place. The workshop began, and as the stories were shared, Lena felt enveloped by a wave of empathy. She saw tears in the eyes of many, just as it had happened in the previous meeting. The stories of pain, overcoming, and unity intertwined, creating an atmosphere of welcome. With each account, the tension that had previously existed began to dissipate. However, not everything was easy. During one of the activities, a mother expressed her frustration with how the school was handling inclusion issues. She was clearly in conflict, and the room grew tense. Lena took a deep breath and decided to intervene. "I understand your point of view. We are all here because we want to make things better, right? What can we do together to find solutions?" That question seemed to break the ice, and other parents began to contribute ideas. By the end of the workshop, Lena realized she had accomplished something that seemed impossible, creating a space where people felt heard and respected. However, she also knew that this was just the beginning. The path ahead would still be filled with challenges. The resistance from some parents regarding Karen still existed, and divisions could resurface at any moment. But looking at Amaya, Lena felt a wave of hope. She knew that the fight for an inclusive environment would not end there. But now there was a community willing to walk alongside her. Lena decided that she would continue to fight, not just for Amaya, but for everyone seeking a place where they could be who they truly were. And this fight, she realized, could be done with love and courage, one step at a time. Lena was at a turning point in her life. After the workshop, a new feeling accompanied her, the sense that despite the challenges, she was exactly where she needed to be. The room filled with parents and children, the stories echoing, the tears and laughter shared, all of this made her realize that the fight for a welcoming environment was a mission that could transform not only the school, but herself as well. However, the reality was that the challenges had not disappeared. Conversations on social media were still buzzing with criticism of Karen, the principal. Lena saw how some mothers still opposed her approach, and the tension seemed to be a shadow that never left her. But instead of retreating, Lena felt she had a new strength within her. She had found her voice and was not afraid to use it. The first change Lena made was to start believing in herself. From the beginning, she had doubted her organizational abilities and her skill in mediating conflicts. Now, she realized that her role was essential and that her determination could inspire others. She didn't need to be perfect. She needed to be true. This new perspective gave her renewed confidence, and Lena felt more willing to accept help, recognizing that she didn't have to carry all the weight alone. With this internal change, Lena began to open up more to others. She reached out to Anna and Roberto, her collaborators from the workshop, and started discussing the need to continue the conversation about inclusion. Together, they decided to create a support group for parents where they could meet regularly and discuss the challenges they faced, as well as offer mutual support. This idea made Lena's heart swell with joy. She realized she was not alone on this journey, and that unity could lead to real change. As the group met, Lena noticed that the relationships among the parents began to strengthen. Those who were once strangers were now becoming friends, united by a common cause. What had started as a workshop had transformed into a community, and this new dynamic brought light and hope to everyone. Lena learned that friendship could arise from the most unexpected places and that these connections were essential for collective growth. But not everything was smooth sailing. During one of the meetings, a mother expressed her outrage over the lack of concrete actions from the school. Her tone was aggressive, and the tension in the air was palpable. Lena felt her heart race, but instead of being overwhelmed by fear, she decided it was time to use the wisdom she had gained. Calmly, she asked the mother to share her concerns and encouraged others to do the same. The conflict that could have become an obstacle turned into an opportunity for dialogue. With each challenge that arose, Lena grew stronger. Through the difficulties, she began to apply the lessons she had learned along the way. Empathy and active listening became her most valuable tools. She realized that instead of shying away from conflicts, she should face them with courage and compassion. This change in attitude not only helped her overcome adversities, but also transformed her into a respected leader within the community. Months passed, and the school began to see significant changes. Students were more engaged, and parents started working together to promote a more inclusive environment. Lena realized that success was not just about immediate results, but about the lasting impact they could create together. She remembered Carlos, who had shared his struggle with anxiety, and how that had inspired others to open up. This made her reflect on her own journey and the importance of vulnerability. Looking back, Lena saw how much she had grown. She was no longer the insecure woman who had started this mission. Now, she was a mother, a friend, and an advocate. What once seemed like a distant dream was now a tangible reality. Lena understood that true wealth was not in material achievements, but in the connections she had made and the lives she had touched. This transformation did not happen overnight, but with each step, Lena moved closer to who she truly was. She had learned that overcoming was not a destination, but a continuous journey. And with that, her heart overflowed with gratitude and hope. Every difficulty faced had shaped her, and now, with the community by her side, she was ready to continue fighting for a future where everyone could find their place. It was a rainy afternoon when Lena realized that the turning point had arrived. The school was about to hold an important meeting where Principal Karen would present to discuss the criticism she'd been receiving and the proposed changes. Lena knew the atmosphere was tense and the expectation hung in the air like a weight. Some mothers were determined to confront Karen, while others wanted to find a way to unite the community. Lena took a deep breath, remembering everything she had learned in the past weeks. She had found her voice, but now she needed to use it to calm the waters. What was at stake was not just the principal's reputation, but the future of the school and the community that had formed around it. As she entered the room, she saw familiar faces and others who were still strangers. Fear and uncertainty loomed over everyone. The meeting began, and tensions quickly became palpable. A mother, who had always been critical, stood up to express her outrage. "How can we trust the school administration if we don't see real changes? Our children deserve more." Her voice resonated, and the gazes turned to Lena, who was sitting there in silence. Her heart raced, but instead of succumbing to panic, she remembered her mission. She stood up, feeling everyone's eyes on her. "I understand the frustration," she began. "We are all here because we want the best for our children, but what if, instead of criticizing, we sought to understand what is being done? I believe we all have something to contribute." The room fell silent. Lena felt it was the right moment to act. "Karen, could you share with us the actions that are being planned?" The principal, visibly nervous, thanked Lena for the opportunity. She began to explain the initiatives that were underway, including inclusion programs and emotional support for the students. But, as she spoke, the mother who had stood up earlier seemed unable to calm down. "Words are easy. We need actions. Our children need to see changes, not promises." Her tone was raised, and Lena felt the tension increase again. At that moment, Lena realized that it was not just a matter of exchanging ideas, but a cry for help. "I understand that we are all tired of promises," Lena said, her heart pounding. "But if we don't start to dialogue, how can we move forward? Let's work together. Let's be the change we want to see." She looked into the eyes of each person in the room, seeking connection. And then something extraordinary happened. Other parents began to speak up. "We want to help," said one father. "We can create committees to follow up on the actions." "Yes," added another mother. "We can meet and discuss how we can contribute to inclusion." The room, which had been divided before, was starting to come together. Lena felt a warmth in her chest. The transformation was happening. When the meeting ended, Lena was surrounded by parents thanking her for her courage. She realized that, with a simple gesture of vulnerability, she had managed to bring the community together. These were not just words spoken in the heat of the moment. It was the beginning of a new era for the school. Lena smiled, her heart overflowing with gratitude. She had overcome her insecurity and found her place as a true leader. In the days that followed, Lena saw the changes materialize. The support group grew, and parents began to collaborate effectively with the school. Together, they organized events that promoted inclusion and welcome. The relationship between the principal and the parents was strengthened, and the tension that had previously dominated the environment began to dissipate. Lena looked back and reflected on her journey. She had faced challenges, doubts, and moments of weakness, but she had learned that true strength comes from unity and dialogue. With each step, she had become a stronger and more authentic version of herself. Now she understood that success was not measured in material achievements, but in the connections she had made and the lives she had touched. That day, as she watched the children playing and the parents chatting animatedly, Lena smiled, knowing she had contributed to something greater than herself. The transformation was not just personal, it was collective, and deep down in her heart, she knew that every step, every challenge had been worth it. In the days following the meeting, Lena felt the change in the air. The school, which had previously seemed a battlefield of opinions and discontent, now breathed a new energy. Parents began to meet regularly, discussing ideas and planning concrete actions to support the school. Principal Karen, once isolated in her position, now appeared more accessible and open to the parents' suggestions. Lena observed all of this with a smile on her face. One day, while walking through the schoolyard, Lena encountered a mother who had always seemed distant until then. "You really made a difference, Lena," the woman said, her eyes shining with gratitude. "I didn't know how to help, but now I feel part of what is happening. You inspired us to act." Lena felt a squeeze in her heart. It was gratifying to know that her courage had impacted others. She realized that by standing up, she had given a voice to many who felt lost. Over time, Lena became a central figure in the support group. She organized meetings, presented proposals, and encouraged collaboration among the parents. In one of those meetings, a father raised his hand and said, "Lena, you are a natural leader. I never thought I could get so involved." Lena's humility prevented her from boasting. "I am just someone who believes in the strength of the community," she responded. "We all have something to offer, and together we can make a difference." But not everything was easy. At times, Lena still faced criticism. Some people, used to a more traditional management model, questioned the new proposals. One mother, who had been one of the most critical during the meeting with the principal, said, "I still don't see results. We need more than just good intentions." Lena took a deep breath, feeling the pressure rise. She knew that change would take time, but she remembered what she had learned, the importance of keeping the dialogue open. "I understand your concerns, but let's celebrate the small advancements and continue working together. Every step counts." These words resonated in the room. Lena realized that even in the face of criticism, her determination helped keep the group united. The conversations became more constructive, and little by little, the parents began to see the fruits of their collective efforts. A new emotional support program was implemented, and students began participating in activities that promoted inclusion. Lena saw children smiling and having fun together, regardless of their differences. This made her feel that all the effort was worth it. Lena also began to reflect on her own transformation. Before, she saw herself as just an ordinary mother without much influence. Now, she felt strong and confident. In a conversation with her friend, she said, "I never thought I could have this impact. Sometimes I wonder if I really am a leader." Her friend replied, "You are, Lena. Sometimes all we need is someone who believes in themselves and inspires us to believe as well." As the months went by, Lena realized that her life had changed in ways she had never imagined. The connection with other parents made her feel like she was part of something bigger. She began to get involved in more community activities, helping to organize events that promoted solidarity and inclusiveness. The school, which had previously been just a place where her children studied, became a space where she and her family felt at home. The last meeting of the school year was marked by a celebratory atmosphere. Parents and teachers gathered to share the successes achieved and discuss plans for the next year. Lena moved, watched the children playing and the adults laughing together. It was a moment of fulfillment and unity. At the end of the meeting, Principal Karen took the floor. She wanted to thank everyone, especially Lena, who had the courage to take the first step. This community had become stronger because of the efforts of each person present. Lena smiled, her heart overflowing with joy. She realized that by opening up to dialogue and collaboration, she had created a space where everyone felt valued. What began as a moment of tension transformed into an example of how unity can overcome challenges. She knew there would still be obstacles ahead, but now she had the confidence and support of a community willing to work together. And on that day, Lena felt that she had not only found her voice, but also helped others find theirs. In the days that followed the last meeting, Lena looked back and reflected on her journey. What started as a simple dissatisfaction with the school had turned into a vibrant movement for change. She remembered when, hesitantly, she decided to raise her voice, an act that seemed so small at the time but triggered a chain of extraordinary events. The school was now not just a building where children learned. It was a welcoming space where every parent and every student felt part of something greater. Lena watched how the children enjoyed themselves, united in activities that promoted inclusion. The sparkle in the students' eyes and the contagious joy in the courtyard were proof that individual efforts can add up to something grand. The criticism Lena faced along the way was not in vain. It propelled her to strengthen herself, to open up to dialogue, and to listen to everyone's concerns. She learned that true leadership goes beyond having a title. It is about listening, welcoming, and uniting around a common purpose. This journey not only transformed the school, but also transformed Lena. She went from an insecure mother to a confident woman capable of inspiring others to stand up and fight for what they believe in. When Principal Karen gave her thank you speech, Lena felt a wave of emotion. The principal's words resonated in her heart. The community had grown stronger, and she had unknowingly become a symbol of hope and change. Lena realized that the true victory was not just about tangible achievements, but about the connections and friendships she had made along the way. People who were once strangers had now become part of her life, and this support network was one of the greatest rewards she could have. However, Lena's story did not end there. She knew that the fight for the improvement of the school and the community would continue. With each new battle, every new challenge, she would remember the importance of unity and the strength that came from a cohesive group. Lena was ready to face any obstacle, knowing she had a community by her side. Looking to the future, Lena also realized it was time to use her voice and influence to impact even more lives. What started as a simple indignation transformed into a commitment to change. She was determined to help other mothers and fathers find their voices, to unite and to fight for their children and the community. The cycle of empowerment had begun. Lena's story is a powerful reminder that we all have the capacity to make a difference. If you have ever faced a challenge or felt alone in your struggle, know that your voice matters. Do not underestimate the power of coming together with others and fighting for the common good. Every small action counts and can lead to great transformations. Now, I invite you to reflect on your own experiences. How can you get involved in your community? What changes would you like to see? Share your stories or reflections in the comments. Your voice is essential for us to continue this conversation and inspire more people to take action. Like and subscribe, because together we can create a space where all voices are heard. The time to act is now.